Good morning, friends. Today we are going to learn about Parsi theatre, that is, the influence on Hindi cinema or the influence on Bollywood. There is a lot of influence of Parsi theatre on Hindi cinema. See the introductory part, that is, for 100 years from 1850 to 1950. Parsi theatre dominated the Indian culture scene in its most creative period from 1870 to 1890. It brought about complete change in attitude and perception about the theatre in the minds of people. Parsis were the pioneer in the modern theatre movement in India. The theatre what they had introduced is popularly known as Parsi theatre. It is beginning of a new tradition in Indian theatrical culture. Before this tradition had been started, there was folk theatre performance as only one kind of Indian theatrical practice. 1850s onwards, Parsis started performing theatre following the British or European theatre in India. The first Parsi theatre The first Parsi theatre company was started in 1853, was owned and directed by Gustaji Dalal and supported by Dadabhai Nauroji, K.R. Kama, Dr. Bahu Daji, Ardeshir, Moods and few others. There were many other theatre companies by the Parsis which were emerged after this. Those are the Zoroastrian Theatrical Club, the Student Amateur Club, the Victoria Natak Mandali, Natak Uttejak Company, Impress Victoria Theatrical Company, and the Alfred Natak Company, Natak Mandali. According to Parzar, almost 20 drama companies were founded in between 1853 to 1869. Parsi theatre actually prepared a path for the emergence of Bhasha theatre in India. For example, it has immense influence on the growth and development of modern Gujarati theatre. What was most significant about Parsi theatre is its contribution towards stage design, use of technical apparatus, introduction of professional attitude, opera culture, etc. In other side, it appeared as alternative theatrical culture than the mainstream dominating European theatre. Parsi theatre companies brought confidence among modern Indian professional theatre practitioners to write drama for their own theatre also. Parsis introduced Urdu drama for performing in the theatre also. This is how it prepared a road towards modern Bhasha theatre with enough boost and collective cultural confidence. Beside Urdu and Gujarati, Hindustani and English were major languages. What Parsi theatre used to perform. The themes of the Parsi theatre was widely extended from Shahan Maha to Indian classics. This was only theatrical form as well as culture. What was pan-Indian, their troupe used to perform from north to south, from west to east till Burma even. Burma even. What is the uniqueness of Parsi theatre or the significance of the Parsi theatre? Structurally, Parsi theatre performance was different than proscenium theatre practice, and it had closeness towards Sanskrit drama structure, though it did not follow any of the trends blindly. In commercial production, this uniqueness worked as a good gesture to reach to the audience. The interesting and homely uniqueness of this commercial theatrical production was three actors used to chant a prayer before the drama began. Immediately after the prayer, one actor used to deliver the prologue. Third one, that is music, was very much integral to the Parsi theatre, and in this regard, it has similarity with Bengali indigenous dramatic production Jatra. At the end, an actor used to come to say thanks and quite often be used to sing a farewell song. Humor is also a very common element of the Parsi theatre. This theatre was truly a community production in a sense that it was deeply rooted into the community identity and the audience from the community used to subscribe it as own. The people of the community used to share the oneness with the theatrical productions, and it also helps the community to build the identity. Therefore, Parsi theatre is a community culture, is a family culture, and is a romance of the individual who are or were passionate with it or about it. To create appeal among the audiences, it used to depend on spectacle and melodrama. According to Girish Karnad, the stagecraft of the Parsi model demanded a mechanical succession of the altering shallow and deep scenes. The shallow scenes were played in the foreground of the stage with a painted curtain, normally depicting a street, as a backdrop. These scenes were reserved for the lower class characters with prominence given to comedy. They served as the link scenes in the development of the plot, but the main purpose was to keep the audience engaged with the deep scenes, which, which showed interior of palaces, royal parks, and other such visually opulent sets were being changed or decorated. The important characters rarely appeared in the street scenes and in the deep scenes. The lower classes strictly kept their place. So, Times of India reported on 5th January 2016, Yazdi Karanjia, an octogenarian Surti and one of the doyens of Parsi theatre in Gujarat, was in Ahmedabad on Sunday to deliver a talk on history of Parsi theatre as part of the three-day literary festival organized by Gujarat University. The question about survival of Parsi theatre is one of the most frequently asked questions nowadays. But I am hopeful that the theatre will be alive till the last of Parsis is alive. He said, Parsi theatre will last till the Parsi says Yazdi Karanjia. According to Yazdi Karanjia, the history of Parsi theatre in India can be traced back to 1840s when they performed Shakespeare's play and Faramji Dalal staged a very popular original Parsi play Rustam and Sohrab in 1850s. The very comment made by Karunya in the above mentioned conference shows that the cultural integrity of the Parsi theatre with the Parsi culture and perhaps no other art form of the Parsis is so much identifiable with the community. It seems that the community expresses the best through this art form. Parsi theatre not only had influenced Indian Bhasha culture but it also had influenced Bollywood. Adeshi Irani, Sorab Modi, and Prithviraj Kapoor brought the tradition of theatre into cinema. Sorab Modi's Pukar 1939 was Parsi theatre based Hindi movie. The influence of Parsi theatre went beyond the use of Urdu. The song and dance formula owes its popularity to the Parsi theatre to a great extent. When the Bombay film industry grew, Urdu by default became the language of cinema, commented by Parsi Khabar. The Parsi theatre took a new turn in post-independence India with the rise of the popular cinema. The standard bearers were Firoz Anita and Dr. Ratan Marshall. Adi Maza Marzaban freed Parsi drama from the shackles of tradition and brought realism to the theatre. The early theatre practices in India was highly sophisticated. One has to be amazed to see the deepness of aesthetic sense and sincerity of creating the beauty through the production. Sitting arrangement like proscenium structure, highly expansive frames of paintings, photos were used to mark the difference between actors and the audiences. Highly valuable and gorgeous costumes, changeable paintings all around the hall. Gas lights also used to be there in making of beauty. Sometimes there were even refreshment rooms and where there also were opportunity for the family shows where women were very much welcome. It is said that the Parsi theatre entered into the culture of professionalism since 1870 and actors across the classes used to participate in this theatre tradition. Many of the famous actors were from the lower class and some of them used to stay in the very poor areas and narrow lane of the city like Talau. The famous actor from such class is like Kausji Khatan and Jahangir Khambata. Play like Uttejak Mandali was performed almost 1100 times in 16 years, and those who were engaged with this production were very much educated and conscious about their society and political surroundings. So, took their theatre as their social responsibility. They wanted to change the society and desired to bring some progress in the society through their theatrical dialogues with the people. To them, theatre was nothing but a mode of communicating with the masses. The theatrical texts which were presented from such objective used to have strong message of social significance and used to carry moral values addressed to the audiences. Multilingual sources of Parsi theatre. As we mentioned earlier, that Parsi theatre practiced multilingual text through their theatrical productions. The first Urdu book which was adapted into Parsi theatre was Natak Sagar by Nurlahi and Muhammad Umar, published in 1924. The Urdu which was used in different productions of Parsi theatre was not the Urdu of Delhi or Lucknow, but the Urdu mixed with Gujarati, Hindi, and Awadhi. This is how different registers of the languages were used in the Parsi theatre. And Parsi theatre successfully represented the multilingual ethos of the country. But this significance is not limited in addressing multilingual ethos of the country, but it has greater politics and culture of tolerance. Parsi theatre tried to be more accommodating, inclusive, and also tried to be a space of representation of many, which shows deep thought and love of the brains behind it towards the greater people of Indian respect, irrespective of caste, class, religion, culture, and language. In its very nature, Parsi theatre appears as a symbol of exclusive cultural practice in India, not only in the Urdu linguistic culture but also among the Gujarati speaking people. This theatre culture was so integral. The below mentioned information shows deep affinity between Parsi theatre and Gujarati language. The most important among the Gujarati weeklies was Kaya Ser Hind, established in 1882. Essays of Dhanji and Patel on the Parsi theatre were published serially in it for 97 weeks. Of these, 68 were collected and published as Parsi Natak The Kahani by Kasare-Hind Press in 1931. Parsi theatre as a secular space. The play dealt with all subjects ranging from Middle Eastern romances to Hindu myths and the adaptations of Shakespeare. But the treatment avoids all religions and ethical nuisance. Secularism was a fashionable concept. Karnad says in theatre in India, as the audience was heterogeneous across the classes, caste, and religious communities. They were catered different narrative genres. Sometimes it was Indo-Muslim fairy romance, sometimes Hindu mythology, and sometimes bourgeois social drama. This is how whole approach of Parsi theatre was very much inclusive, and it held polyphony and plurality of Indian culture through the practice. Parsi theatre very consciously tries to break the reality imposed characterization in its performance. In its version of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, it made Gohar and many, many Phaeton as Sita and other women characters, and these two actresses are respectively from the Muslim and Christian family. And simultaneously, Parsi and Muslim actors played roles of the Rama and the Krishna. Such characterization needs to break one's own religious practice, identity, and concept of otherness, at least for the time being, to do justice to the characters of the play. So, next part is about freedom movement, harmony, and Parsi theatre. The Natak Mandali not only inspired Indian Bhasha theatre movement but also it had impressive contribution in the freedom movement as they used to perform nationalist and socially realist dramas in their theatre. But this trend was not unique to Parsi theatre. Most of the Indian Bhasha theatre used to perform nationalist theme in their performances at the end of 90th and the beginning of the 20th century. Communal harmony as the theme of the play was very common in the nationalist theatrical performances of Parsi theatre. And as we mentioned earlier, they reached to the people of Delhi, Lahore, and Calcutta with the plays of such kind. The participants in this Parsi performance and theatre group were from Parsi, Hindu, Muslim, Anglo-Indians, and Jews of the Baghdad. Very composition of the theatre company was very harmonious. The next part is about decline of Parsi theatre. That is, after independence, rather the partition Parsi theatre lost its space gradually. The Hindus and the Muslims were divided, two nations were made. The people who were engaged with the Parsi theatre from different geographical regions, they had divided into many parts of two nations, either in India or in Pakistan. People were divided and broken psychologically. The Hindu Muslim question was so common, debated, and aggressive, and unrest in whole political scenario that the Parsi community was bit confused to understand where to place themselves. The community as a whole became very much silent and it influenced their cultural productions and greater cultural life. What does Bollywood have in common with Parsi theatre? When we think about what is the common in the Parsi theatre, we can understand how there is a effect of Parsi theatre on the Indian cinema, and we can understand it very thoroughly when we learn about the effect of Parsi theatre, that is what is the effect on of Parsi theatre on the Indian cinema. There is a lot of effect and common things with the Parsi theatre. So here we can understand how Parsi theatre has having on the influence on the of the Parsi theatre on Bollywood. Here we end for this particular part of influence on Bollywood of Parsi theatre.